Welcome to episode 37 of New Indian Woman podcast, airing first in early March 2021, and I'm your host, Krishna. Hi listeners, guess who is the guest for today's episode? She's someone whom I wanted as guest right from the moment I decided to do a podcast, almost 1.5 years ago. Let me admit I was hesitant about contacting her, and when I did, she really and readily agreed. Who is a special person? She is someone who I feel doesn't require any introduction, but still, to do justice to a podcast format, let me introduce the guest. She is none other than Bindhumalini Narayanaswamy, the very popular singer and composer. Bindhu is one of the few rare artists who have pursued training in both Carnatic and Hindustani classical forms. Yet, she has constantly strived to explore avenues outside of her strict classical roots to other forms and traditions, in search of the pure, soul-stirring power that music has. This has given form to a more easy yet confident personal style for her as a performer. Bindhu has composed and sung for feature films, documentary films, theatre productions, and independent albums in Hindi, Kannada, and Tamil. She won the National Award and Filmfare Award as Best Female Playback Singer for songs from Naticharami, a Kannada film she composed and sung songs for. If you ever get an opportunity to listen to her sing Kabir live, don't ever miss it. Bindhu, I'm so happy to have you on this episode. I'm a huge fan of your music. If there is ever going to be a chat with you done by an amateur without any knowledge on music, this is the one. Let me admit. I hope a little further into the recording, I overcome that stage fear equivalent feeling that I'm having, and it becomes more natural. As of now, I'm quite nervous. And welcome again to New Indian Woman podcast.
Thank you so much, Krishna. Thank you so much for that extremely sweet introduction.
For the benefit of the listeners, would you just give a quick intro of your journey until now? I'm saying quick only because I have so much to ask you.
Yes, I'll try and be as quick as possible. So, I'm born and brought up in Madras, now popularly known as Chennai. And although none of them could take music as a complete full-time profession for a long time, I grew up in a musical family, and my party did take it as her profession, her identity, at a later stage in her life. And my mother, who was a full-time central government employee, was also a graded artist from the All India Radio, and she did go and perform as and when possible, but she was always singing, whether I'm sitting behind her in the cycle or she's cooking or she's doing anything, she's singing all the time. So that is how music entered into me right from the time I was born. And party also, in Party's house, party class was going on all the time. Rangam, Veena, dance, everything, because of my aunts and uncle also. So for many years, I didn't formally learn music, but music was also imbibed. Like language, like other habits and everything, by sheer imitation and absorbing from the environment. And much later, I started going for formal classes. As graduation, I pursued arts, drawing and painting. So I did my graduation in History of Fine Arts and drawing and painting. Then I also did BA Music through correspondence to kind of support my music learning with theory a little more theoretical knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Post that, I went and did MSc Visual Communication, my master's, and then I went to National Institute of Design to again pursue one more diploma in design, because I think I still was not satisfied about what is it that I wanted to do and how to go about doing it. And through all this, I had various interests of dance, theater, music, sports, and for a brief period, I was also very keen to learn Kalaripayattu, and I was doing that with utmost sincerity till I left for NID. So that is one thing I want to really go back to in life somehow.
My God, it is like an outpouring of creativity across all the areas.
That is one way of looking at it. The other way, I was just still not sure about what is it that I want to do in life. So it can be seen both ways. Uh, it was okay for me to try and fail than not try at all. You
Beautifully
know,
put.
that was
Beautifully
my
put,
thing.
yeah.
And I didn't even fail. It's just that I had fun. I went along with it till it nourished me and I found meaning in it. And till the point where I felt I was also doing justice to it.
Hmm.
The minute I felt something is not sitting in place, I will then see what is it, what's happening.
True.
Whether it's a calling from inside or something outside is not resonating with me.
Hmm.
So, like, even though I took design, I was very clear that I will probably not go into an ad agency and do branding.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying branding as an exercise is wrong or anything, but how I apply my skills, what I use it for, was very important for me.
Right.
And I think shaping oneself is both an additive and a subtractive process. Like, if the sculpting is happening both ways, so sometimes we have to let go of some things, and we, like you said, we're learning all the time and adding things to ourselves as we
Right.
move.
You have followed some very nuanced areas in music and maybe not the traditional or the easy route, especially coming from a family with a lot of musicians. Maybe there is a path which is very clear, the concert route or some other kind of a more traditional journey in music. But you seem to have moved away and you are trying various sorts of things. What makes you do that?
Okay, so two things. One is that I'll be honest that this seemingly straightforward route of music and concert, although it's straightforward, it's not easy. I think it's one of the most demanding and rigorous journey one takes. And music is like any other arts. It's about being in that ocean. It's not about reaching anywhere.
Hmm.
It's so vast, and it will take lifetimes, many lifetimes too. And I don't think anybody wants to even complete it or reach somewhere.
Right. Right.
It's to just be happy that you have this ability to be with music.
So I was referring not from in terms of reaching somewhere, sorry, but more
Huh.
in terms of trying out various forms. Like, what I'm trying to say is trying, say, Kabir, trying some women writers, those various kind
Yes.
of nuanced areas versus looking at, this particular composition alone or trying out various compositions in one raga and something within the more classical kind of a set
Correct.
pattern. I was referring to that.
Correct. So, what I wanted to say is what you're asking is very correct. At the same time, I would say, in one way, I think I kind of try to escape, but at the same time, in another way, like you said, I have taken a more challenging route. So, escape is, let's say, when I think the art itself demanded a certain level of rigor in a very particular, focused way.
Right.
And going into perfecting it to a very high level of precision, I reached till a certain point in that, and after that, I couldn't because I could not understand the meaning of this exercise. That is just me now. So till a point, it was the art, and after a point, something about who I am and my personality took over in terms of questioning why certain things are done.
Yeah, a very important attribute relevant for anybody in any role, and especially for women, I feel. I'm saying,
Yes.
regardless of what role you do in life.
So, how each one gets an answer to that, or what is the answer each one is willing to take and settle for, is what decides every individual's journey. And at that point, I face some of my own mental blocks and I try to look for my answers. And in that search, somehow I had to leave home, leave my familiar territory, leave my familiar form of music, almost to even come back and look at the same old familiar things with a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
To not take it for granted or do anything blindly or do anything just because everybody says so.
Right.
So these were things which kind of is there music or is there Carnatic music or Hindustani music beyond religion? Are these two that entwined? So then what happens? If you kind of break these things down and then reconstruct it, what happens? There is a lot of exciting possibilities there, which over time, centuries, people have made and broken and questioned. So what I'm doing is nothing new, but I had to find my vocabulary there.
So, do you think that search or those questions got triggered because of the environment at home, your education? What do you think would influence? I'm asking the relevance of this question. I would like to, why I'm asking this is, as a mother, or many of us as listeners, many of them maybe, young mothers, older mothers, whatever, who are used to, what do you say? Okay, my children should learn music. This is what I want to give my child. This is the environment I want to create. This is the kind of education I want to give for my child, etc. So I'm just trying to figure out. See, ultimately it boils down to how self-aware a person becomes. Somewhere in our journeys, we start becoming self-aware. We start asking those questions to ourselves. Then comes the question of whether we have the courage to face the questions and things like that. But what do you think influences those? Is it the environment? Is it the education? To some extent, it's the personality, I understand. But apart from that, what are the other factors you think leads one to those processes?
Definitely the people and the environment. And I would say the kind of experiences or things that happen in your life, be it very bad and traumatic or extremely good and memorable. Both leave a lasting impact on you. So our decisions are based on that you do not want certain things to happen again, or you're scarred for life, or because there is something which nourishes you so much. So when you're asking about this, was it the environment and people? It's all this. Certain really wonderful things, certain really unfortunate things, and certain things, like you said, the awareness came much later. And then we start putting pieces together and say, oh, this is what happened. Oh, this is what happened. And some, like I say, I'm happy in terms of music that it was around me. That without me realizing it, it seeped into my being. Same time when it started becoming a demand or a very, oh, you're so good at this, you're so gifted, so this is what you should do. After a point, I was not very sure.
Okay.
I wanted to do it because I love it, not because I can do it.
Okay, good.
That was one. And the other thing, I think, like, because you spoke about children, when I look back, I think I was not I have said this many times that I was a rebellious person. I was rebelling. Actually, now when I think about it, that sounds unfair to my own self. All I did was like any child who's curious and who wants to understand what's going on. I have asked simple, straightforward questions. And when there were convincing explanations given, which felt reasonable, I have accepted it. When somebody has said, don't question it, this is how it is done because this is how it has always been, I have never understood how that is good enough.
Yeah.
I think the adult can still say, I don't know. That
Right.
is
A very important point. I
far
completely agree. Yeah. There are so many times in my discussion with my friends, I've said that sometimes we want to become the super parent in front of the child and we hate to admit. So there is this ego playing between the parent and the child. It sounds very rude and harsh to say this, but somewhere to come down and say, I don't know my child. I really do not know why I am doing this. It is, yeah, when you do it, it's humbling. Yeah, true.
No, I think if certain questions I had asked, the adults or anybody sat down to just say, what is this question? Where is this coming from? And if there was a dialogue, I think things would have panned out differently. But I said, okay, if you chuma say this is how it is because this is what it is, I think you should give my own intelligence and your own intelligence a little more merit than just
True,
that.
true. Yeah. So that is a wonderful thing of us to think about. Do we have and do we create that space in our homes for our children or whomever? And children tend to ask more. Do we encourage that? Are we ready to question along with them if we do not know? Yeah. So you were talking about the happy moments and things like that, which also shape. And in the context of happy moments, I am thinking about the National Award for playback singing. See, one is the National Award per se, as award as an entity getting, and what does it mean to your identity. Yes, that can be a topic by itself. But that particular moment, I have never interacted with anybody who has got a national award, okay? So I'm feeling already happy about it. So I'm like keen to know, how was it for you to know that?
Honestly, it was an utter disbelief at that moment.
Huh.
I was like, I really thought people are pulling my leg and just for the sake of teasing me, randomly calling me. And like this usual thing about it's too good to be true kind of one thing it was.
But did you also feel one is national award, as in such a large country with so much talent and all that is fine. But another thing is you are there in that list with many other people who have been there, whose names are there, right?
Right.
So that is also a different kind of feeling. You grow up listening to some greats and suddenly your name is there in that list, kind of. Did you get that feeling?
It was a mix of so many things, Krishna, because,
Yeah.
like I said, it was really beyond my imagination, first of all. See, sometimes you want to work hard to get into an ID, or you have an exam you write and you want to get that mark, and you do things with that goal. Here, I didn't really have any of that in my horizon. Of course, the deep dreams are there somewhere saying, what if? But those are chuma like daydreams kind of a thing. So, seriously, for the longest time, it really felt like that. Having said that, I have to also admit saying the fact that that particular song, Mayavi
Yeah.
Manave from Nati Charami, got this sort of a recognition really uh, makes me so happy and proud because it's one of the most unconventional compositions to first of all feature in a film and that got chosen and that I could be part of this entire journey. I was not just a singer. I know I got it as a best playback singer, but to know that I have been part of the creation is really what is the culminating thing for me here. Saying it's not just my voice, it is my creation which is also getting acknowledged.
True. Yeah, such a beautiful thing. And typically, anybody who has any kind of chat or an interview with somebody who has won it would request that be sung. I'm not going to ask that. I will not trust my basic audio mechanism to render justice to that song. So listeners, please search for this song and listen to it. It's available all over. It is so beautiful, and I loved the context of that song in the movie. I loved the music. I loved the song, everything. Yeah. And Bindu, you choose to sing Kabir, and I am a big fan of you singing Kabir, and also women writers. Why these specific?
So, Carnatic, I really love Carnatic. I really, really love, and I really hope I put in the effort to go deeper into it. I really wish I get that discipline in my life, and similarly Hindustani. And both of them really showed two very different deep rasas. One is bhakti and the other is shringara, and all the shades of it. I'm not going to say only purely. I'm not going to box anything here. But both were so much in the realm of the form, Whether it's, at least in my understanding at that point, I could only see forms and not experience what bhakti means and what love could mean, or how both could be the same. And Kabir gave me that space of formlessness. His Nirgun bhajans, or those universal truth that he constantly speaks of, which then it hit me as a layperson.
Okay.
I did not have to become a saint. I did not have to follow one way of life to experience what he's saying or to be hit by what he's saying. It is so timeless. It's always relevant.
And I saw that Kabir, not an inspiration, it's much beyond in your sister's book.
Yes.
Right? So it's a family connect with Kabir kind of a thing, or do you people discuss Kabir when you meet? Because that's a beautiful book. I chanced upon that book and I did not know it was your sister, and I was like, oh my God. And that was 2 days after listening to your concert once. And it was so beautifully written, and in a way in only which, somebody who has imbibed and who feels that love for Kabir and what he has done can write in that way. In such a simple way, but I don't know, it is somewhere inside, kind of, it cannot be expressed.
She is the one who reintroduced Kabir to me also through that book.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
you're right. Because for me, otherwise Kabir was just the dohas that you had to memorize and write in your exams.
Yeah.
And I found him to be too moralistic then, saying, oh, you have to be like this. He sounded very strict, but the way my sister portrayed him, he is really so human.
Yeah.
And so beautiful in all the fragile fragments that he could hold with so much love. That's how Kabir entered, and initially, and Kumar Kandar. In his music and Kabir's words, even before I understood what Kabir was saying, I really loved the way I could just lose myself. And afterwards, when I also started understanding the meaning through initially the translations by Linda Hess, that really opened another dimension to not just music, to entire way of thinking, to look at oneself, to look at the world, to perceive this world. Kabir is not saying anything other than what has been said time and again by many of the saints, but it suddenly became accessible. I could reach it, or it reached me at the time that I needed it. I could express it in my music also by just probably somewhere allowing myself to feel it. That's all. That's all it needed.
So beautifully put. So, see, most of us as laypersons, again, we listen to music as entertainment first. And some of us just manage to kind of, just go above that and just, it influences us in different ways. We allow it to influence, etc. So I'm not talking about those very highly knowledgeable listeners who are able to interpret whether that how the complexity. I'm not referring to that. I'm talking about layman listeners, where it may be mostly entertainment and goes beyond it for a few people. But listening to you, I feel you see the power of music in different ways, or you believe there is so much more power to music, and somewhere activism, somewhere the power of music can influence mind. Somewhere you believe in that. That's how my perception of your music. How do you see music yourself?
I've said this many times, but again, it's almost like music has shape and no shape in the same moment. It's solid, but you can't hold it in your hand, and it will come and hit you. So, music always transcends our. It hits emotionally, and it kind of goes into all those cracks and crevices inside us, where sometimes we want to just let go of logic, because also music has this way of somehow immediately, they say no, music is transporting, transcending, because it kind of disengages you from time and space. And we always map our reality with this. So it immediately becomes timeless, or it transports us, it takes us away from where we are, it takes us deeper. Because music has that ability. That is one. The other is that, yes, music therefore can transform or be the vehicle for transformation. And also music says much more or packages your expression in a much better way, in a complete way, holistic way. And even when you watch films, cinema is 2D if you see only the visual thing. But what finishes the cinema is the sound design, the music, which then makes the audience sit in the experience. It's finally the sound that comes and reaches you. Yeah, as much as you're watching it with your eyes. So we take sound for granted, but it's always there around us, and it's always there in our entire life journey. That is one. The other is that therefore I feel music really has a greater power of healing. And even in my own way, I can quickly change my mood by listening to some song or listening to some sort of music. Or if I'm too bogged down by something, if I just sing a song, I can completely at that moment find a little bit of break from being trapped in a particular thought process. And the fourth thing, as you were asking, I realized what it is for me. Is that I think music becomes a safe place, because now when I look back, most of the times my experience of completely absorbing music or being in the lap of music is when actually I was in the lap of my mother's, either lying down sleeping while she was singing, climbing up. And so for me, and then recently I saw that my brother was just sitting and practicing his sitar. And my niece, she didn't do anything. She just went there and she curled herself up in front of him, and she was just lying there. And I could completely get it. She just felt like going and absorbing that peace.
Yeah. With that example, you have taken each one of us to our own mother's lap. That peace and what music means, there could not be a much more emotional explanation, I feel.
So looks like that's what I go back to when I engage with music or I share music. I end up approaching it with, now as I'm talking to you, I realize. So that's probably what I'm recreating again and again for my own self and everybody.
So nice. Yeah, so nice to hear that. So this music, for me, lyrics are important as a listener. For you as a musician, how important are lyrics? How important are musical notes? I always thought I will not be able to understand much if I do not understand the lyrics. But recently I was listening to you and Pallavi singing Arabic song, and it moved me to tears. You had given what the story is about, what it is about, but without understanding the words itself, like you were saying, it takes us somewhere. But for you, do you think lyrics is required or music in its pure form? Because of your roots in classical music, whether it is Carnatic, Hindustani, how much of, there is this focus that musicians sometimes have on how they are able to precisely render or improvise notes, etc. How important are these factors for you?
Yeah, all of them are important. Like they come with their own intrinsic value. So the notes, the swarasthanas, the shruti. So the minute, let's say I have a tambura, to use the tambura and not be in pitch is unfair. Then you just don't put the tambura, sing. Let it go wherever. Then you just that is another beauty to it. But if you have said, okay, I am using a tambura, that means I've already put my first step of saying, we are going to adhere to pitch.
Okay.
Then let's do that. Having said that, our ears are trained to a certain level, and as we go deeper and deeper, our ears keep getting trained, and it's that journey that you can only reproduce, or you can produce a sound that you've heard or you're heard. So as much as the voice has to train, you have to utter a sound, your being has to know that sound exists and to identify it and produce it. So the ears have to become better at it. And Indian music has its certain aesthetics, its classifications, its norms. When you go to other cultures, those musics have developed in a different way. So they come with their own beauty, which may sound right and wrong to us, but then that's because we are seeing it from here.
True.
So each of them have their history, their journey, their development. It's very, very exciting that way. So like you said, till a certain point, the storytelling happens because of the words. And then after a point, when you don't understand the words, the imagination takes flight.
Right.
It's like watching a film and reading a book. Sometimes when we read a book, we are imagining everything that's of the picture that's getting painted there.
Correct.
When you watch a film, that medium is telling things differently.
True.
So so once words come in and we, here these words are potent or they have a certain function here, I think the best is to marry the word and the music there and make the best of the two.
Okay.
And otherwise, you can just flow like a river and do everything that you need to with just music. And so lyrics for me is secondary. Music by itself is enough. At the same time, once the lyrics come in, we'll have to make sure that both of them make sense.
Right.
That in a given context. So that's why sometimes I do recompose some known things because maybe I feel like what is the lyrics are saying and how the tune is sounding is not sitting well, or maybe I feel like just expressing it differently.
Okay. So in this, talking about music and seeing from where we are and trying to maybe interpret music, I just want to talk about a related thing in terms of what people, how, like all of us, we make judgments about people. We we are in that process of judging people. While we may talk eloquently about the fact that we should not be judging or I am not being judgmental, etc. But if we examine, we realize that most of the time we do judge people based on their looks, based on what they wear, based on how they speak, based on their gender, whatever. So judgment constantly happens. And similarly for music also, I feel there is a lot of judgment, and I've heard that you refer to this, how music influences people's judgment. The kind of music you sing and how you sing, where you sing, influences people's judgment about the person. So could you touch upon that?
Okay. So, I get reminded of how one of my classmates in college, she said, you get away with everything, Bindu. You ride the bike and come to class. You do all these so-called blasphemous things or naughty things. Or you just walk around in trousers and shirt and everything. But my mother or anybody in my family don't mind it, because the minute you sing a song,
Yeah.
so with that you get away with all this, because it's like all this is extra, but deep inside you are that very cultured girl.
Okay.
So I'm just, when she said that, even I was like, wow, okay, that's so loaded. She's not passing a judgment, but she just showed how our minds work, what we associate with what. That if you sing a particular kind of music, then you're this kind of a person.
Right.
So it's very tricky, Krishna, because throughout my life and even now, I think I have these, to a certain extent, people from outside judge, but after a point, I think there are some standard stereotypes in my own, and I myself am suddenly like watchful of, will this person say something like this to me, or will this person think this about me? So actually, by doing that, I am also judging the other person.
True.
That person is so deep in their classical music that they will definitely shun me because I have broken rules or something like that. Who knows? Maybe that person is as chilled out as anybody else.
So do you remember any such instances where, like you talked about your friend sharing, but I'm saying a friend sharing is one thing, but I'm saying some stranger saying something where you feel, there was an opportunity and you were able to respond to it. I'm asking this question only because most of us are also, while we judge constantly, we are also at the receiving end, and sometimes we do not know in our society, in our context, how to respond to some of this. And I feel it is important to start talking about some of these things.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And see, that's, I think I try to break certain things for my own self. If I unnecessarily connect one to the other. For example, I'm going to take a very personal example that my very close people in my family keep constantly telling me that I should wear a bindi. For me, I love bindi. I love wearing a bindi, all that. But sometimes I just don't feel like it. And if I have to sing a particular song, I feel that song itself is so potent, and all that matters is the song and the singing, not how I look, what dress I'm wearing, how I present myself. At least for me, personally, that's secondary, because I feel one should not judge a person by their looks or the clothing or anything like that.
Correct.
And so this has always been a big point of debate for me. And somehow I have never been able to buy that. In fact, the more and more that gets pointed out, I'm talking about a very simple thing here, probably about looks or how one needs to present oneself. Or you should have a smiling face, you should open your eyes, you should look very pleasing. That sometimes I think stops us from actually being able to connect to that moment. Probably had that potency of allowing us to experience something far more deeper or larger or something very, very different. Maybe that one moment you wanted to just cry because that note or that song or that tune did something. But you have to put a smiling face. I'm not too sure about that. One should get lost in it, no? So I'm talking about on the appearance level. Like this, I think there are many layers to this. Of who is allowed to sing what, and how are you supposed to be when you utter God's name. Then what is this idea of God? This can really open up so many things, Krishna.
And additionally, because you are a woman, hence what is doable, what isn't, versus a man, and so on, right?
Yes. Yes.
While there is no answer, I still chose to, discuss this particular question because most often, when we hear, say, people in the limelight, people who have, a reasonable level of credibility in society and all that, when they take, we normally think, they do not face challenges. They are above all this. So, hearing this from you in the context of music, in that field itself, for something as simple as a bindi itself, these are the kind of challenges that you face. I just felt it is very important to discuss. It doesn't make, in my daily life, these kind of challenges are there. People who have achieved something, they are beyond all this. It's not true. Everybody have to be presentable, you have to be smiling, you have to be, because you are a woman, because you are a musician, because of your roles, there are those expectations and judgments happening constantly. Yeah.
Yes, and in fact, everybody at the end of the day is just a normal person, and they will have their needs and everything, and they are not answerable to anybody in that way.
Yeah.
It's a same thing. There has to be that respect of giving one that level of space. Yes.
Yeah. Friends, hope you enjoyed listening to Bindhu talk about her journey, about what music means to her, and so much more. We had decided to record as one episode, but then we went on and on. And that means there is a part 2 to this chat. That episode gets even more interesting, I promise. Look out for that. Meanwhile, refer the show notes of this episode or head over to the newindianwoman.com website to see links to the award-winning song, a Kabir rendition, a performance of Threshold, as well as the book she refers to in this episode. So until the next episode, this is Krishna here saying bye to all of you. Till we meet again.